Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Oh.
Welcome to the first episode of the Ben and Matt podcast,
Yes.
where we are going to talk about everything creative, what it means to be creative, what it means to make things, what it means to experience art. I wrote a little blurb. But yeah, basically we want to just talk about art in a non-pretentious or pompous way and actually talk about what is hard and what makes people make art and how people experience art and how they got into art and whatever that means for you, whatever medium that looks like. That's kind of what we want to talk about.
Yeah, I feel like we'll dip into very easily the pompous zone, and I don't, want to, because again, we're just out here trying to make art, trying to have, good full life, and share that with, people and just spread it.
Yeah,
But-
and I'll just start by saying my name is Matt Davidge, if you don't already know, and this has Ben T Murdock. We're both Ontario filmmakers.
Yep.
And Ben is a huge Marvel fan, so we're going to...
Yes, I will be forcing my information upon you because I like to share that. So, and then, you guys can jump in on that as well because, Matt, you're not as into it as I am. So
Yeah, that's all you,
that'll
man.
be my...
We're doing a Marvel Minute
Oh,
featuring
yeah.
Ben only.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, this is our introduction to the podcast, and we will start by talking about what we just finished, which is...
Yes.
If you want to take the lead.
For sure, yeah. So we just did a 48-hour film challenge. So it was organized by... It's just called Cinema 48. It's an international festival. Started in Washington, D.C., where you have 48 hours to complete a short film. And you're given some prompts at the beginning that must be within the film. So Friday night, we went to a bar in Toronto, and they gave us all of our required elements that had to be in the film. We had to have an actor or a character named Max Remy, who had to be a busker or a street performer. We had to have a prop that had to be used, which was a key. And then we also had to have the line of dialogue spoken word for word or written, which was... I
can't believe that happened. Or
I can't believe this. Or is this even real?
Yes.
Is this even real?
Yeah.
I believe. And then we had a pick between two genres. We drew them from a hat out of 30 different genres, from romance, sci-fi, mystery, and we ended up getting period piece or mockumentary, and we went with a period piece. So we were talking about the months before Y2K, because it's 2022 right now, so it still qualifies as a period piece, given that it's not the period of life that we are currently living, and it's past 20 years ago. So we did that. We wrote it the Friday, shot, edited, and completed everything in the 48 hours, and it was a wild ride. Yeah.
Overall, what do you think went well? What do you think flowed? What do you think kind of kept us up, and what do you think went well?
For one, like the cast and crew, like it's been nice to have curated a really awesome team of people so far.
Yeah.
Like again, we have like our Sioux team of like the guys that all went to college together and have like reunited to keep going.
Yeah.
Which
is
was
so
crazy. And to
incredible
have
do.
like some of us come back, like we had one guy fly in from Sault Ste Marie, like hopped on a plane in the morning just to shoot with us, which was amazing. And then just having everybody back was really nice.
Yeah.
And then having like a really cohesive team, I think, was in our favor. So that like one of the biggest problems on set that I'm like, I love having this problem, is people laughing and having too much fun, just joking around and it being like, okay, settle, let's get the next shot. But so far as problems to have on set, that's like something I would take any day over like difficulty. And no, like that I think went really well. Again, 48 presents difficult challenges of just like, how much time do you have to edit? Like you can edit forever and ever, and they say that they're like, you're gonna have to cut your editors off at some point. So just time restraints are always tough. And then sometimes because you're going quickly, you'll miss like continuity things here or there, to be like, oh, we missed that, just because you don't have the same time to review as you would for like a traditional feature or a traditional
Right.
short where you're able to like schedule everything out and have the proper like checks. But on 48, you kind of have to go fast because that's
Yeah.
the structure. But I think it's the beauty and the pain of it is like whatever you put into it over that weekend, you're gonna be able to have something at the end. Like we have a finished result after 48 hours, and that was really nice.
How was the writing of it? Because I participated in the filming in the with Troy, and yeah, I always wonder what it's like writing it when you have 12 to 16 hours of like, okay, I need to have something finished,
Yeah.
and you start with an idea. So walk me through that process. Walk me through where you started, where the idea was. It somebody mentioned something like why Y2K and
For that process, like the 48, obviously you can't, within the rules, you can't use any footage that you've used before, and you shouldn't really remake something you've done before. That's just like defeats the purpose of it. However, what you can do is like prep as much as you can. So we did, like when we found our location, because we wanted a really dynamic location to shoot in, and we ended up with like a tattoo shop. So that informed a lot of the decisions. Was like, we know we're going to film in a tattoo shop, so how are we going to go about this? And we had that like a few months prior. So then we came up with theoretical pitches for every single genre.
cool.
So we had like over the couple of weeks, like,
And that was yourself and Adam?
yeah, Adam,
Nice.
myself, and Tom would just come up with ideas. Like, okay, for romance, what's it going to look like? Okay, it could be like a guest tattoo artist coming into the shop and they strike up a kind of cute romance between the two of them. Or you could have, a meet cute of someone coming in to get a tattoo and having that artist happen there, or, coworkers. And then we had just so many concepts. And the Y2K one came up when we were looking at period piece. We're like, okay, like what kind of timeline can we do? Knowing that it's really difficult to push something into like, say, the 70s or the 50s or the 20s just based on the location. So I'm like, we could go 90s pretty easily.
Yeah.
We had a couple 90s concepts, and then Y2K, I think it was Adam just sort of spitballing time pieces.
Cool.
And then that ended up happening once we got there. And then we mixed it with one of our pitches for, I think, drama, which was about like a manager or a health and safety inspector coming in to deal with like their employees. But
Yeah.
and then we mashed those together into
How
like
fast did it get written?
quick, but it's never quick. Like from driving from when they gave us all the information was at 6:30 p.m. and then we're chatting about it just conceptually in the car in the drive back. That took like an hour and a half, and then another hour plus, probably two, hashing out kind of the plot and like the flow of it. And then Adam sat down and wrote for another like 3 hours on top of that. So we didn't
Cool.
have a script until midnight or so. So probably 6 hours of just writing and conceptualizing. And then I went and shot listed afterwards. But
Nice.
no, Adam would come out of his room, like he'd be like, okay, I'm going to write for a little bit. Like we would conceptualize together, and he's like, I need to write by myself.
Yeah.
And he like went to his office and just sat silently. And I would just chill on the sofa and try and think about what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
But it's weird because it was kind of like independent. He had to be away from us. And then once he got stumped, like I go and check on him and be like, oh, what page are we at now? He's like, oh, page 2.5. And then he'd come out. He's like, all right, I'm stumped on this section. I can't get this character to interact with this character, but it has to happen.
Yeah.
And then he sat with us for a while, and the three of us went back through it again. He's like, okay, cool. And he'd get diverted off track. He's like, okay, I can't write here anymore. And he'd go back to his office and finish it.
Cool.
But
Yeah, I find it always so fascinating how you guys like can just come up with a product so fast, because just even the stuff that we've been working on together, it's just like when we write, but it's just like, okay, we won't touch this for 2 months, 3 months. And it's funny, I know we wanted to talk about a lot of the stuff we talked about last night, which is hard because it's not fresh, but yeah, we talked about like learning from your failures and seeing failures on set and then learning from them. And I was talking to you about this last night and kind of thought about it more after I got home, and I was doing some photo editing before you came, and you're constantly seeing errors that you're making, and like okay, this shot's not in focus, or this shot's too blown out, or this one's kind of too dark, and then thankfully with the power of editing, you can pull some of those images again and actually have something usable and tangible. And then with Photoshop, you can edit stuff out, but you're kind of always met with these errors, and these, whether you know them or not, you can have solutions to these errors. But I think it keeps people humble, and I think that's why this is going to be an interesting podcast, because each creative medium has their own set of problems that you're running into, and I think that's very unique to art. Like, and I think that's a fascinating thing. Like, there's opportunity for that in science and math and other things like that, but
art's so personal for that sake. Like, again, science, math is like, okay, yes, you've run into a problem, have to find like a creative solution in a way, but it feels more structured. Where art, like, sometimes you'll come up against an issue if it's with a photo or a shot or a frame or something, or character.
It's something that you created, right? Which is different than science or math. Like, these are, fundamental things that people are doing. Yeah. Like, those are things that you did, which is like, that's where the accountability thing comes into hand too. I think it's pretty fascinating that way.
Yeah. And I find too, with like making mistakes, like the line that I heard in my head the other day as we were going through editing was, I learn more from my mistakes than my successes.
Yes.
And like failures, like opportunity. Again, like most people, the word failure is very powerful and daunting. So mistake is something I prefer to use, because you can fix a mistake, but like a failure feels definitive. So I try to not use that word.
Has such a defined sense of self to each person. Like, each person has their own unique value to what a failure means in their life, and like what that looks like, which is super fascinating. And I know that's kind of how we started talking about last night, and we've been thinking about this podcast for a long time, and thinking about, okay, what equipment do we need, and what do we do, and how do we start? And yesterday we're just like, fuck it, let's film it.
I have to do
tomorrow.
It now. Yeah, yeah.
And here we are, and I don't know if the audio is working, and I don't know if the camera's going to work.
I don't know how this is going to look at all.
So this is definitely like a first raw take, and but
the first one's always interesting when people go back and they're like, we weren't even sure what it was going to be about at the beginning.
Exactly, and it's just like
can evolve, but that's part of learning from your mistakes. Again, like this is its own venture. And I think too, with like the 48, this was the second time we got to do it. It's the third time Adam and Tom did it, and or third time our friends did it, I suppose. Like, I don't want to not use names somehow, but I got to get used to that.
There's no cameras. There's no cameras.
It's fine.
I remember the first couple of podcasts I did with the Rambler, and like I definitely blacked out every podcast. I was just like, I remember finishing the podcast, like clicking stop, and I'm like, what did I just say? Like, literally, what just happened? Now I feel more comfortable, but it definitely takes a little bit of time to like just kind of just put a wall. Just put a wall. There's a wall right here.
But I think that comes with like experience, which is super important. Like, some people are just, I suppose, savants or incredibly naturals on camera or in the arts, that they just feel like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. Yes, I do feel that about being on set, but it switches in a sense. Like, after doing this film, I'm like, oh, this was great. Like, I love filmmaking, and I love having this film, and I love seeing how it comes out all together. But it felt different this time, having filmed another short a few weeks ago. And it was like, this is a nice roll of, not that it diminishes its value, each film, by the more we do, but I suppose I don't weigh it as heavily when I feel like there is a mistake. Like, when I was starting up in the films.
Because you have another opportunity.
Yeah, because like when I was starting out in the films, felt farther and farther apart for like a large scale type thing, it was really difficult to take those mistakes when I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to get to prove myself that I can learn from this one next. So like from the last 48, when there was mistakes, I'm like, this is horrible. Like, I can't believe I messed up, because I wasn't sure when I was going to film next. And it hurt me so much more. Whereas like with a lot of arts, if you take like, modern social media, and you go like, okay, I'm going to make like a video every single day. If your Monday video is not very good, it doesn't matter because you're going to make one Tuesday and you can learn from it. But like the longer you go in between, sometimes it just, you weigh it differently. I know like feature film, you're stuck on something for 2 years or more, depending. James Cameron's like 15 years making one movie, but like, no, it just feels different. Like being able to have that continuous flow of art, like same with pictures. It's like, okay, that one was good. Oh, but I'm going to go shoot out again. And that goes for most things. But
yeah, and it's interesting too. I was thinking about this on the way home, driving home last night, and it's kind of philosophical, but it's like more in the terms of like Matthew McConaughey's Greenlight book. I was thinking about how hungry people are in their 20s. Like seeing Leo, yourself, Hari, and like Leo talking about living with roommates, and like everybody's like in their 20s trying to figure it out and trying to like do the thing and like just like showing up. And you could tell, like, shout out to Hari. I definitely could tell that he was like re-sparked again. And I think it's so fascinating working where I work because I'm seeing people in their 40s and 50s who are working business travel day to day. And I think you lose that hunger aspect because you're kind of just like in the routine, and like life becomes a lot more simple and a lot more kind of monotonous, and that's a great thing for people. And that's, just, I think for my brain, I need constant new, and like it keeps me hungry and it keeps me my fire lit, because it's like you have the opportunity to like sit and think about people and think about ideas and like talk to people like yourself who are wanting to make things and like who are ambitious and like want to do shit. And it's just like the more you surround yourself with people like that, the more you're kind of like you get their little spark, right?
I agree with most of it actually, but I'm gonna say that like even like we said, when you get older, like 30s, 40s, 50s, and you have that like structure, it feels sort of monotonous, like you said. I crave structure, which is humorous because I'm in such a non-structured life at the moment of like filmmaking and not having like a perfectly clear path of how, like, I know how I want to do this and where I want to go with it, but it's not like, I have this deadline to meet and that deadline, like they're all self-imposed. But I crave structure. Like I had to wake up at 5 a.m. and sacrifice more sleep so I could do my morning routine still. Like I had to read, I had to do a few things so I could keep that structure, but like a creative structure I think is super important. And like people talk about writing, like, you got to get like an hour in a day if you're gonna write this book or write that thing, even if it's not a productive hour. Just sitting there putting in that effort, which I think is like goes towards the thing about being in your 20s is figuring that out. Like you have a lot of energy or passion and you haven't figured out maybe what your structure is going to look like for because maybe it is just constant, like new everything, like a wild ride. I know for me, I so badly want to be able to have like a consistent, like these 3 days are like, I know exactly what's going to happen, but like I know the next 2 days are going to be chaos. Same with the 48. I'm like, I know I'm going to have 48 hours to do this, but where exactly things line up are going to be chaotic.
Right.
But
yeah, I think too, like I feel like I used to get really overwhelmed by like lack of structure, and I think it's natural for people to crave structure. I think we're just like, we need routine. And like, I just think it's so, I don't know, coming back to what I was thinking is like, if I didn't put myself in opportunities like doing a 48, which is spontaneous and it's unstructured and it's chaotic and it's, it's super, like everyone's kind of just like figuring it out as we're going. Like, I don't know. I think those moments are super important.
Absolutely. I don't think that you can grow without being slightly uncomfortable or outside of your structure. Like in order to to keep going. Like even if you're building like, you know, skyscraper, at some point you have to reach past what your plane is on,
Yeah.
and you have to put something up new, and that's the scary part. Like you watch videos of guys like putting up scaffolding, you're like, no, that just seems super unsafe. It's same with that, like sure you're building off of something,
Yeah.
but you have to reach out and, you know, get out of your comfort zone to be able to grow. Same with, you know, working out, you have to push yourself
Yeah.
to see
Yeah.
return,
Yeah.
and then keep building off of that, which I think is interesting. And yeah,
It's fascinating, man. So now that a day has kind of passed and it's the Monday, so we shot this on Saturday. Ben wrote it on Monday, Friday, and we finished the editing on Sunday. Hari Ramesh, the madman that he is.
Ugh.
It's Monday. How do you feel Monday knowing you have a product finished and you can kind of look back? We finished the wrap party last night.
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel?
It's nice. It feels right.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like a little melancholy after I've finished a project, because it's like, oh, that one's over. Like that was fun.
Yeah.
But then like a deep satisfaction of having done something. There's a great line of like, for writers, it's like, I hate writing, but I love having written.
Yes.
And I feel, it's funny, I don't quite feel the same about filmmaking, because on set is where I'm like, yes, this is the environment. This is so good. And the same with like post is amazing. And like, it's a great process. And then afterwards, I'm like, that was so good having something. But then immediately my mind's like, that was good. Let's move on to the next thing. And I think I need to learn to enjoy my wins. Like, this was a successful film. Like, not everybody actually completes on the deadline, and not everybody completes in the way that they want to.
And I felt like we the way we did it this year was like more structured. Like it felt like it was smoother. It felt like it was like, I felt like we have a little bit of a formula now.
See, that's fascinating. I thought the opposite. I had, like, we chatted about it.
Again, I didn't see the writing part, right? So I'm just seeing what you guys are half finished. I don't see the turmoil that you're going through. But
no, I think it was on set was messier this year, which was interesting, because last year we came at it ultra professional, having not done the 48, not having had a crew size that big before, like fully on our own, like that we were like in control of, really. So I was made sure to research a ton, made sure to be on top of everything, make sure that all of our bases were covered. And then it was a success, which I'm like, amazing, that's great. And then we shot something smaller a few weeks ago, and like that was a success as well, but with a much smaller team. And because of the confidence we had from the first 48 and the smaller film, we're like, okay, cool, like we know what we're doing. And about the camaraderie of the team, having curated a great group of people, I think I was not more casual, but more comfortable in the scenario. So it flowed really smoothly, but there was little mistakes that were made that I'm like, oh, if I had been more regimented and more like, okay, no, you know, you got to read the book again, got to make sure to go cover this thing about set deck or cover that thing about continuity, where I'm like, oh, that went well, but I felt like I had control, but a looser grip on things out of confidence. And then in the editing, I was like, oh, if I had been a bit more vigilant at this, like X, Y, or Z, I feel like I could have got more out of it.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think I still haven't seen it, and
it's good.
I think it's definitely a different feeling when you get to see the writing, the shooting, and then you see the editing side of it, because you're seeing the mistakes, right? I'm just seeing, like, I don't know what the fuck I shot. I was just like, you know, I hope it's good. That's why I was like, Hari, did it work? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what it looks like, but
no, it always looks good. I stand by that. Like everything you guys shoot always looks like cinematic as hell. Like I've said that since
sweet.
Like since I met like you and Troy, I was like, wow, these guys can actually film. Like I'm like, I can film, right? Like I know how to like compose a shot. And then I see you guys do it. And I was like, never mind, I can do it. But like, this is how it's done.
Right. It's such as like a, you know, and coming back to like writing is I think the project that we're doing right now is the first thing that I've actually done where I'm like writing something.
Mm-hmm.
Because like in school, structured writing is like essays and fucking book reports.
Yeah,
and like I took a creative writing class, I think, if I can remember correctly. And I think I liked that, but I don't remember how it was like graded or structured.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember that I always kind of enjoyed journaling, and I enjoyed kind of, when I was a kid, I would literally write stories.
Yeah.
And like, I'll have to ask my mom if she has anything, but I used to write stories and present them to the class like every day.
Wow.
Like, I used to have full fucking stories, just like random shit I would just write.
Yeah.
And I think like through school, you kind of get trained that you suck at writing. Like,
oh no,
you suck at essay writing, which is like, that's its own area of writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
My writing could be terrible, but like it feels good now.
Yeah.
Now I have the confidence to like write a project with you, and like whether it's perfect, whether it's like actually written well, like it doesn't matter to me. Like I actually enjoy the writing we're doing because it's like I feel like it's on my own terms.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So I got to the same spot at the end, but my beginning was completely opposite. Because I have like dyslexia, when I was a kid in school, my reading was horrible and then my writing was terrible. So I knew that I was not good at it. So school, I not that I didn't try, I did, but like my mom was always just like, if you can get a B, you know, if you have like good like personality skills, that's all that matters. Are you nice in class? Are you kind to other people? Are you working well? Like, are you listening?
Yeah.
Like, are you trying? And I'm like, I'm trying the best I can. She's like, that's okay then. She's like, even though you're getting like a D in this like thing because you can't write, you're not sure what's happening. So I didn't like put more energy into writing, but because I knew school wasn't my thing, I was like introverted and went to my toys like I was a kid. So I'm like, oh, I'm enjoying creating in that sense. So I had crazy stories of all these like games I would play with. Like, I'm like, oh, these action figures do that story, or these ones do this story.
Same.
And then
so
it just
man.
paralleled through film because I loved TV and movies, and then I would like get the toys from that movie and make the sequel. Before I had a good concept about I'm like, that movie ended on this part. I'm going to buy the toys and then do what I think should happen next. And sometimes when the sequel would come out 2 years later, I'm like, well, my thing was better. So I'm like,
dude,
okay.
I love that.
And then eventually, as I got like more and more into that, I'm like, oh, you can do that for a living. You can actually like make the stories that are on the TV. And they're like, yeah, that's a whole job. I'm like, oh, okay.
I know, it's so insane. Like,
can I do this?
I don't know. I remember learning about the Sioux because I was like, I've told this story 1,000 times, but it's like I was trying to find a program that was some like semi-film related, something in the creative industry, and I knew that like TV and broadcast wasn't the move for me personally.
Yeah, same.
And then I remember somebody I remember learning about Sioux College, and I was like, where the fuck is Sault Ste Marie?
That was the same thing. I was saying Sault the whole time.
Yeah, I literally thought I was in the States, and I was like, how am I going to get there? But I'm like, I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm like, however I get there is how I get there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, long story short, I like realized that like there's so many, not only jobs in film that are so interesting, but like I just remember feeling like making videos with your friends and like making things just always felt really good.
Yeah.
And, like I remember even this, like when I was in like grade 10, like shooting a photo and knowing that like I just like that's exactly the way I wanted it to look. And like it kind of blows, you turn your camera around, you're like, whoa. And like that feeling, I was like, that's the feeling I'm searching for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like I knew from the beginning.
See, like I knew I wanted to make movies and make like art in that sense and have short films and like be able to go through the full process, which is why I went to like Sault College, because I couldn't find anything that was the entire process. Because I kind of like writing, I kind of like post-production, I kind of like shooting, and I didn't know where I was going to end up yet. I'm just like, I need to be involved with this.
Yeah, just give me like a little bit of
yeah,
everything.
at one point I thought I was going to be a visual effects artist, and
Cool.
then like I was going more into maths and that kind of stuff. I'm like, maybe post is my thing.
Yeah.
And then once I got there and learned like more about the writing process and just the structure of our classes, like I'm like, oh, I have all these ideas, and people are like, oh, you actually like can just come up with an idea on the spot. I'm like, always, like it just flows.
Yeah, and it's so
there.
interesting, man. Like I don't know if you felt this way growing up either, but like I remember, I don't know, it's just like my own judgment, right? Is like people who create art are like weird, or they're different, or you like or you just get it or you don't, or like, and I grew up with like not seeing people create things all the time, and like not necessarily in the most creative environment. My house is just whatever, and like I see people's homes with like tons of art and music and instruments, and I'm like, that's just like the perfect environment for a kid, I think, because like you're trying to figure out what you like and like what you want to do. And I remember like watching my mom paint and my sister paint and whatever, and like I'd always try, and then like I would stop because it's not good, and then I'm like, I always think about it too, and like playing instruments like the piano and like the drums, and I'm like, if I just let myself actually be shitty, I wonder how good I'd be now.
Yeah.
You know, because there's just like the oh, I don't want to suck in front of people, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, they can't see it. And I had never felt that way about shooting photos, which was interesting.
That is interesting.
Even though I look back at my work 10 years ago, I'm like, oh my god,
what were you doing?
this blind like confidence. And cameras are something that I've never put down since I picked it up. And I remember like begging my parents to get me a Canon T2i, and I was like, and then I got one, and I was like, okay. And that's the thing that I stuck with forever, which is like, as a kid you kind of gamble. As a parent, sorry, you probably gamble on your kids, right? It's like, is this person gonna sell this? Does this person hate this? Like,
that's
in a month.
Yeah, one of the biggest things, but like parenting is you never know. You're like, oh, my kid's crazy. There's all kinds of things like, oh, kids, I want to do soccer. Okay, sign them up for soccer. They play. Never mind, I don't like it.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, we just signed you up. We spent all this. And I think the same thing goes for art, but like we said, you have to reach out and try to know what's going to work. Like I was making like short films in high school, and it never, like, it felt fun. Like I enjoyed it. I knew that was like some of my favorite classes were like, oh, you know, you go out and shoot something. I'd watch the footage. I'd enjoy it. And I'd be like, this is fun, but never seeing the, like the full vision come through. I'm like, well, you know, I just shot it in the park, so it's not going to look like the right thing until I met you and Troy. And I was like, guys, I want it to look like this. And you guys were like, okay. I'm like, can we get like this sort of shot? And you guys would adjust, it would shoot it, and come back. And I'm like, there we go. For the first time, the footage in the editing suite is looking the way I saw it in my head. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I was just like working with actors and getting performances right and that kind of thing. I'm like, here we go. I'm like, this is the experience now.
Yeah. And it's something I definitely feel too. Like setting up the cameras for the podcast, I'm like, it didn't feel like it's in the right place, and I'm gonna look at the footage and be like, that's not the right place.
Yeah.
But like, there is a feeling within me that I get when I have the right place, and I don't know how to describe it. You feel it, and I remember you talking about making films reminded me that I did the same. Like I would make little stop motion things.
Yeah.
With a camera you had to plug into the wall, and you could only go as far as the cord would go.
Yes.
And I remember, I wish I could find, I think all the footage got, because it was on tape, so it would get rewritten over itself. But if I could save that footage, it'd be hilarious, because there was a couple of like interviews I did. Like,
oh, really?
Me and my friends would sit and like pretend to do a talk show.
I love it.
Late night talk show.
I love it.
And it's like, I would do little stop motion things. I was just constantly like just playing with like cameras and like, this is a VHS camera that I still have. I should incorporate it some way into what I'm doing now. But
that'd be cool.
Yeah, and even my phone, like I feel like this year I've given myself way more grace with feeling like I can just create things, even if it's good or bad. Like I want to start painting again. I want to start playing the guitar and like playing the drums and like just exploring these things and like allowing myself to just be shitty at them and just like finding the value, because like You don't need to create something and be really good at it. Like
Yeah.
you can just, I heard this musician talking about it the other day. He's like some guy I found on TikTok, and he works as a postman, and he's like getting flack because he's a postman rather than a guitar player.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, you know, I didn't like the feeling of monetizing my work. And I was like, that's so interesting. And it's like something that he can only know within himself.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to understand how he feels.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember resonating with that feeling because, like, you know, people have always asked me, like, why I'm still doing what I'm doing, and, like, you know, in the service industry and not taking a studio position. And I've always kind of stuck by my guns and been like, I don't want to sell myself short for, like, working at a shit studio.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, even though I'm doing the thing every day,
Yeah.
if I'm not doing stuff that I actually want to do on my terms, it doesn't mean anything to me. It's at that point, it's just like anybody could do it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but that's what I find fascinating about, like, and I think long term, and I'm speaking this into existence, is
Mm-hmm.
creative direction for me is like, that's the end goal. I think is like me being a creative director, not necessarily doing the shooting or the editing, but like me being the person being like, okay, do this,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
I love it. At the beginning of that thought, man, I should have taken more notes because so many things you said were so interesting. Okay, so at the beginning of that, we were talking about like art and not having to be good at it. And there was a quote I heard, and it was, art does not have to be mastered.
Yes.
Like if you enjoy
Yes.
doing something, and that's anything, it doesn't have to be art. Like if you enjoy, I don't know, like redecorating your home,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you enjoy it,
Yeah.
like, oh, your house doesn't have to be the most perfect thing.
Mm-hmm.
Same with art. Like if you're a guitar player, if you love playing guitar, but by like industry standards or social standards, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Like you can still do it. That's why
Yeah.
people sing in the shower.
That's how I feel about
it doesn't.
singing,
It
bro.
doesn't mean that
Like,
you.
that's
can,
how I feel about singing. Exactly.
Yeah.
I belch in the car, and I'm like, I don't know if this is good at all, but like this feels really cool all the time.
Yeah, and I think like if you get something out of it, usually art, usually singing, or people dance in the kitchen, right? Like you
Right.
see it all the time. It's like, oh, I'm just dance when I cook, or you
Yeah.
hear music, or you scribble like on notepads or whatnot. Just you draw smiley faces, or my mom can't draw at all, but she draws little hearts or flowers. She draws the same 3 types of flowers all the time.
I
And
love that.
just because she enjoys it, it's kind of a little thing that she'll do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's not because she has to, get better at it, but she just likes
Yeah.
to do it. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And
Yeah.
so often, like to your later point of if it becomes either monetized or too structured, or it's like, oh, keep doing that one thing, or do it in service of something that you don't resonate with, it can lose a lot of its meaning. Like
Yeah.
my old roommate who loved to cook, right?
Yeah.
Like he loved cooking. He was a fantastic cook. Everyone's like, why don't you go into culinary? Why don't you like do this as like make money out of this? Like, what they say, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. He's like, no, I can't do that, because what happens if if I'm told to cook something and eventually I don't want to cook anymore? He's like, I
Yeah.
can't sacrifice being told to do something on the chance that it will diminish that for me. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, if someone's telling me to cook, dishes I don't care for, he's like, I can still do it. He's like, I do that for my friends. If they want to have like pasta, but I don't really like pasta, I love cooking, so I'm going to make it for them.
Right.
But he's like, if I was in like, all the time doing something somebody else told me to do, he's like, I might not want to go in the kitchen anymore.
Yeah. It's so fascinating, man. Like it's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this is a good segment to lead us into Ben's Marvel Minute.
Oh, okay, cool.
So we will readjust, and we'll be right back.
Yes. Hi, I'm Ben T Murdock. These are my Marvel minutes. So I'm gonna talk to you guys and Matt more about what's going on in Marvel right now. More so the MCU, like Marvel Cinematic Universe for the acronym I will use many times. Oh shit. Okay. So we're in phase 4 right now. After Endgame, they do phases. So in the phase 4, we have the TV shows. First time Marvel's done actual TV shows. There's been 8 shows so far, including the one animated show. So She-Hulk just came out. It was incredibly controversial. It ended. Lots of guys saying, like, oh, no, Marvel's gone too feminist. Marvel's gone too inclusive. Marvel's gone too much this, that, or the other thing. That was always going to happen, but it's unfortunate that it's got a little bit worse this time. It's ended. It was a pretty good conclusion for some people. Other people, it was even more controversial because it was super meta, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, Marvel did its first ever special presentation with Werewolf by Night, which was super good. And Marvel, I hope, takes this as an intro to do more short-form storytelling instead of TV shows, which are 6 hours, are kind of like movies. But we've transitioned, and I think it's going to help them into their phase 5, phase 6, and beyond with doing more short presentations paired with their big movies. But yeah, this has been Marvel Minutes. Oh my God, it's really hard to do. But yeah, okay. Oh. But yeah.
And we're back. Cool. We just want to say thank you for listening. This has been episode 1 with a podcast that has yet to be named.
Yes, the podcast was.
It is a work in progress of a name.
Yes.
Yeah, we are hoping to have this on all streaming platforms.
That'd be great.
Maybe an Instagram. Maybe a Facebook. We're hoping to do these maybe bi-weekly.
I think bi-weekly would
twice a month.
Yeah.
2 episodes a month.
That'd be sweet.
And yeah, if there's anything that you guys specifically want to see or anything you want to chat about, please send us questions. We'll be happy to answer your questions. And look out for your DMs because we will be looking for some guests.
Yes.
If you know anybody who works in any of the creative spaces, whether that's music, art, physical, tangible art, like painting, creating, woodworking would be super interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious about like carpentry, even like dance.
Yeah, full-time musicians are super interesting to me. Please hit me up.
Yeah.
Or Ben.
Yeah.
Photographers, filmmakers, editors, sound guys.
Yeah.
Anybody. If you like art,
pottery,
pottery.
Like, are you designing little things? Like, you like making knickknacks, that kind of stuff. I don't like people who make jewelry as well.
Yeah.
All these things where you're
that's interesting.
Using your creative brain to
yes. If you're a human,
make something. Pretty much, yeah.
If you exist,
pretty much,
you'll be a guest.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. We will catch you on the next one.
Yeah.